What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tsla, SPY, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the market moving forward and what you should be watching for as time goes on. Let me just mention that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, when it comes to NIO, I just want to mention that right now we have a nice bullish accumulation structure, but whether or not this holds depends on a lot of different factors, such as if we will hold above our 50 EMA. If we manage to hold above 3.94, we're going to likely try to fill this gap up to about 4.04, and there's going to be a little push to NIO above $4. There's a good chance of that happening as long as support holds. So I'll break down more information about this over the next couple of minutes. Let's first talk about some data coming out for tomorrow. So as a reminder, there's not really a whole lot of data that's too crazy for Monday and Tuesday, but data gets very important starting on Wednesday when we have the FOMC minutes, not to mention more things such as important PMI reports on Thursday, and then Jerome Powell giving a speech on Friday. But tomorrow is Monday, August 19th, 2024. And for the American markets, there's not really much coming out. We just have Waller from the Fed giving a speech and a couple of bill auctions. So this gives the markets some leeway. Now, when it comes to what's going on so far, now there's about a 75% chance we get a 25 basis point cut and about a 25% chance we get a 50 basis point cut. The market's favoring that 25 basis point cut for the time being. And then for earnings, just to be very clear, it's not really much coming out. Lots of retail for the upcoming week. We have very, very minor earnings for tomorrow, but then later on during the week, we have like Lowe's, not to mention Target, Macy's, TJ Maxx, and a few others. But that's pretty much it. As far as NIO goes, the power swap station in Norway is still open, and we're starting to see their 53rd opening right now. That's great news for them as they're continuing to grow and expand in Europe. And they're going to need a lot more competitive vehicles. That's why they have the new Onvo L60 coming out. I think that that's going to be a big game changer for them, giving them a lot more of an advantage for competition. It's going to be very fun to watch, so we'll see how things go, especially as their sales start growing thanks to that and their growth in Europe. So I can't wait to see as the numbers continue to grow. And being early into the stock price gives us a big edge, at least for the long term. Bank of America Securities has a neutral rating for NIO as of right now. The price price ratio is kind of low, though. NIO is not very strong compared to the markets. Generally, when you see runs, you want to see this start to go up. So we're not really there yet. We're not ready for a big run quite yet. And Mondays aren't known for being as strong as like Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We're only green about 49% of the time on Mondays. And volume is still kind of flat at 28 million. So we need a little bit more volume for us there to be a lot more upside. So from how I see things, I think there's going to be a lot of chop coming to NIO. If we could hold above 3.94, I think we easily go up to about 4.04 or higher. If we lose this, we're going to return to 3.8. So it all depends on if we could hold this. Right now, there's a nice accumulation structure that favors upside. This kind of looks like an inverse head and shoulders. So it looks to me like it wants to fill this gap and go up to about 4.04. So I favor that a little bit more, but just for confirmation, we'll be watching our levels to be safe. For SPY, this is technically trying to uptrend, but I just want to call out that we're at this tough resistance between 555 and 556. We're going to be watching to see if we could break that zone. If we break that, we could just go straight up to fill the gap in the 560s. If not, and I think that there is a good chance that we push a little higher, we hit resistance and we might retrace just a bit, but then we'll see if we get bought back up and continue higher from there, or if we retrace a little bit more and then continue higher for an inverse head and shoulders. So I think we're going to go up a little bit higher, get very close to 555 to 556. We'll see if SPY retraces a bit going into like Tuesday. And then whether we get a small retracement or a big one, forming the inverse head and shoulders or not, the chart will remain bullish. And then we're going to be looking for the second big pump to new all-time highs, essentially. That's still a very, very strong possibility, especially during this cyclical period, which tends to be bullish, approaching the rate cut decision, and also Nvidia's earnings. So I think what's going to happen is we go a little higher. We might be pushing for 555 to 556. If we break past that resistance, we go higher. If we can't do so, look at support around 550, 552, and then 549.5 to 550. If 549.5 breaks, then look for a big dip all the way down to the lower 540s, and then we could bounce after that. So watch your levels. My prediction is we go a little higher, and then we'll watch how we kind of react to this resistance. If we get a little bit of a dip, that's going to be completely normal, completely fine. It might be a small dip. It could be a little bit bigger, but then we should get bought back up. That's going to be another buying opportunity for another pump towards September, in my personal opinion. So nonetheless, the chart is bullish. Whether we get a small dip and then continue higher, or if we just continue higher from here, we remain bullish. The chart is still bullish overall. On ES, I think we're going to push a little bit more to fill this imbalance and get very close to 5,600. I think we're going to be pushing a little bit higher. Then we'll be watching to see what kind of reaction we get at 5,600. Do we get a little rejection from an inverse head and shoulders? See how this could be like our left shoulder. This could be our head and the right shoulder could be forming. Or will we dip just a little bit towards our 20 EMA and then start pushing back up? It's also very possible, but I do favor upside. I think we're going to continue to push much higher later on, but we'll see what kind of reaction we get at this resistance as we get closer to 5,600. There could be an initial rejection before it continues higher and breaks it later on, so just be mindful of that. Same thing on SPX. This wick happens to be at 55.60. We could go a little higher, and we'll see if we reject off the wick and then continue higher or not. We could retest gap support and continue higher, or we could just keep going. But it depends on this test at 55.60, so we'll see what kind of reaction we get. For Tesla, we look a little bit more bullish. I really like this setup. Nice accumulation, nice uptrend right here. So this is favoring upside greatly. Now, could we dip first and retest like 210 or these lower levels, 212? Sure, we could dip a little bit, grab liquidity, then continue higher. But nonetheless, I think this imbalance will fill and we'll slowly make our way up to 230 within the next 2 weeks. I think we easily go up there. So that's my prediction for Tesla. We could dip a little bit, but then we're going to likely continue to push and form a nice cup. And I think the chart looks very bullish. Don't forget, guys, I also mentioned that Tesla has a giant inverse head and shoulders right here. You guys can see this quite clearly. This is what Tesla's been developing so far. And it's going to likely continue to squeeze higher as time goes on. We are due for a nice bounce, a nice run. I think it's about to get started. So we'll see if we dip a little bit to grab liquidity. If we do, it's fine. We're going to likely bounce and continue higher. Or we could just continue from here. If we were to lose 208, that's when I'd become a little bit concerned and there's going to be a risk of us dipping lower to 201. But as long as we're above that 208 to 210 area, we favor upside. Even if we dip a bit, we could continue higher, and the chart will favor 230 nonetheless. So I favor 230 on Tesla. A nice push. Nvidia is making higher highs, higher lows, breaking these highs. Forming a nice breakout right here. Look at resistance to be tight around 125 and also this gap around 126. I think we may fill this gap up here, and we could continue to push a little bit higher. Now, if we break this, we will continue to fill these imbalances. And if we don't, we could reject and start dipping lower. But I favor upside a little bit more for that 126 area. And we'll see if we continue from there. But so far, it's looking pretty good. And we'll have to see if that continues. For Bitcoin, we're making lower highs. That's a little bit of a concern for me. We'll be watching 59,300. If we lose that, we could be dipping to this imbalance. And if we hold this, we could rebound. Might dip a little bit, so we'll see how things go. For the QQQ, we're looking bullish. Um, I like the fact that this is forming a nice cup, but the question is, are we about to form a handle as we're at this 475 resistance? We're at resistance right now. Now, if we break the 475 area and we continue to hold above this, we could be looking for a push. Our next target is to be up in the 480 area. But if we don't hold above 475, we could retrace back down to our 200 EMA towards 460. 468 is a possibility before we continue higher. So it could be forming kind of like an inverse head and shoulders or even like a cup and handle. So we'll see how things end up developing from here, especially as we have a nice gap above to fill. But I just wanted to say the chart looks bullish. If we dip a little bit, we could continue to pump later on, or if we just continue from here, we remain bullish. But this is forming like a cup, and generally what happens is we do kind of dip a little bit before we continue higher. That's a strong possibility, so we'll see. And we'll just be very patient nonetheless. But I'm a little concerned this might dip first and then continue higher. So we'll see to what extent does it dip. Does it dip just a few points back down to 472 and then continue higher? Or does it go all the way down to 468 and then continue higher? We'll just have to wait and see. But even if we dip, don't turn overly bearish because the chart is bullish. It could just be a small dip before we continue higher. Apple's looking very bullish. We hit 226 as resistance. Look at support at around 225, followed by 223. There's a chance that Apple retraces a bit, but then continues higher. I think it still looks very bullish. We're going to try to fill this imbalance for 230. I think we will get to 230 ultimately. Could we dip first and then continue higher? Yes, but it's also possible we just keep going. But I think it's going to get very close to 230 nonetheless, and I think that imbalance will fill. IWM looks very nice, very bullish looking chart, especially as we have this gap above to fill. It is possible if we do retrace, watch 209 as key support. As long as we hold above that, we continue higher. If we lose that, we're going to be dipping lower. We could dip and then bounce and then start filling a lot of these gaps and imbalances. So I think it might kind of grab liquidity at 209, then continue higher and start attempting to get up towards these gap fills, especially these imbalance fills into the 220s. So it looks very bullish to me. Amazon's bullish looking, but it could retrace a little bit. So might get a little retracement back down towards the 175 area if we fail to hold up at 177. And then after retracing down to our supports, we'll have to see if we could bounce. If 175 doesn't hold, look at the 173s. Could retrace a little bit, then bounce and start pushing for that 180 area. For Meta is retracing a bit. Make sure you look at 525 as supports. We got to hold this and then try to rebound. If we don't, we could dip a little bit. I think it might dip at least towards 520. If 525 doesn't hold, then we'll see if we get a bounce after that. But just watch that very carefully. Microsoft, it might dip towards 415 before it tries to bounce. It may attempt to bounce, but look for a little dip before anything else. Google, same thing. It failed to break 166, so it might dip towards 163 and then try to bounce. So watch to see if that ends up being the case. So as far as NIO goes, as the market is showing, some stocks are showing some weakness. I'll be watching to see how we react here. Can we hold above 3.9 for it to remain bullish? I'm hoping that even if there is a small retracement, if we could get bought back up and maintain 3.95 for the next few days, we will continue to push into the fours. I think we will eventually get to the fours, but we'll be watching to see if we dip first and continue or just push from here for that 4.04 target, if not closer to 4.1. With that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day and peace out.